Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome back to Drak Reviews as we take on yet another game from 2016 to try and get things ready for top 10s and all that fun stuff. And today we're going to be taking on another controversial game. At least it's become a controversial game, not necessarily for its gameplay or anything like that, but because of the company that's behind it. Today we're taking on Recore from Concept. People might remember a couple of reviews ago I did Mighty Number 9. And Mighty Number 9 is not conceived, but approved by Keiji Inafune. And had a lot of controversy about it. Its Kickstarter took way longer. The development took way longer than it should have to be able to bring us out Mighty Number 9. But this was another game that Keiji Inafune tried to get off the ground in light of the momentum of the Mighty Number 9 Kickstarter. So, just to bring people up to speed, they had Mighty Number 9. He was also going to do a spiritual successor to Mega Man Legends, which fell through. It didn't fund. Especially at that point, they'd had a lot of issues with that, with Mighty Number 9. At that point, a lot of people weren't as confident that they could get it off the ground. And they wanted him to focus on Mighty Number 9. This is another case where Concept decided, well, we want to put out another game with some major funding and on a major console. So what they did was Keiji Inafune came up with the concept, but they also worked with Retro Studios, the former creators of the Metroid Prime series, to create Recore. So at that point, let's go ahead and get into the review for Recore. Story's going to be fairly short because in a lot of cases there isn't a whole lot to it when you start. You are Jewel. Or you play the character Jewel and her Corebot buddy Mac as they investigate a desolate planet by the name of Far Eden. The plan was, I guess, to be able to terraform this into another Earth, but things have fallen out of plan, and so they sent people specifically to observe the terraforming and to get it on track, but there's been some problems along the way. We don't necessarily know what those problems are. So the story centers around Jewel and Mac trying to fix various pylons, fix various machines to try and get the terraforming back on track. However, they are starting to deal with another major problem. There are starting to be corrupted Corebots. Corebots were supposed to help with the terraforming process, and unfortunately now are corrupted and only looking to create chaos more than anything else. They're not even terraforming things, and it's up to Jewel to get things back on track. Now, along the journey, Jewel will also meet with other humans that have come to Far Eden to help with the terraforming, but also be able to come in contact with new Corebots, specifically Seth, where Mac is kind of a dog one. It has his own abilities. Seth is more of a spider-like Corebot, and then she also comes across the gorilla Corebot Duncan to be able to help with various puzzles that you'll encounter across the game. But that's pretty much the premise of the story. You are Jewel, you're on a desolate planet, you're trying to get the terraforming back online, and also you have discovered a unique kind of Corebot core that could help you get the terraforming back on track or be your doom with the prismatic cores. And so a lot of the story also centers around trying to discover what these prismatic cores are and what they do to help with this process. As far as the story is concerned, I actually kind of like the simplistic premise because it helps with the process of it. It lets you kind of fill in details about Jewel or about Mac that you don't necessarily need to know, but helps to relate them to you. So I like the simplistic story, and I gave it high marks. I actually forgot to mention this, but as of right now, so this is kind of a check-in review, but I believe that I'm far enough into the game that I actually can do a score, and so I will be. Basically, I'm on my way to like the last dungeon or instance, whatever you want to call it, in the main storyline. So at that point, I am going to be scoring this today, and if anything changes, which I kind of doubt it will, I'll make an amendment video on the matter. That's pretty much the story, and I did give it high marks for its simplicity, but also complexity in the fact that you feel alone and you have to get this terraforming back on track. So visually, this game is pleasing. It does look really great. We have some crystalline caverns. We have lots of really awesome Corebot structures. Lots of stuff to look for. Lots of stuff to look at this and go, it is a pretty game. Am I going to say it's the prettiest game that I've come across this year? Probably not. I would have actually liked to have seen other environments on the planet, aside from desert, but I kind of get why they did that. It's a desolate planet, and they're trying to terraform it to Earth's liking, or something similar to Earth. So at that point, it makes sense that that's the case. But yeah, visually, I didn't really take a whole lot of marks off for it. I know a lot of people have had some complaints with it. I'm not one of them. I especially like some of the Corebot designs as well as Jules' design, where you can actually see her kind of being a scavenger on this desolate world. You see some kind of desert, some desert attire, but you also see mixed in with it is a bunch of Corebot gear, including one of the main mechanics, which is to extract cores. She has like a little tether attached to her arm, which if you push it too hard, it actually will burn her. And that makes a whole lot of sense. So yeah, visually I didn't take a whole lot off, but I am pleased with it. As far as overall gameplay is concerned, is actually, in my opinion, where this game really shines. I see inspirations being taken from Metroid Prime, but I also see inspirations being taken from the Mega Man series. And to explain roughly how this game works is, again, it's an exploration game, but while you're taking on these cores, you will have kind of a basic combat that you can utilize with your own weaponry, but also your core bots come into play as well. So you will have a basic attack type, which I would actually say is kind of between Mac and Duncan. Then you have a solid defense type, which I believe to be Seth. So you have various ways to be able to take on a given threat, and you have to team up with them, so that's amazing. But the purpose is to gather parts and cores to be able to further upgrade your core bots as well as your weaponry and get prismatic cores to continue to unlock the various crawlers and dungeons that you would come across on Far Eden. The other part of gameplay that I like is how the core bots integrate with concepts like platforming. So Mac is a dog, and therefore, like, if you have to find some stuff underground, he's the guy to do it. He'll search around a given area to try and find, like, a core bot that you might need to unlock a door. Whereas the gameplay gets different when you have Seth, because there are going to be tracks that he can climb to be able to get to the higher spots. And even Duncan plays into it, because there are going to be blocked off entrances with rocks that his brute force is the only one that can break. So it's very integrated with working on a balance between Jewel and her core bots. And the best part about that is that you can't have all three core bots out at a given moment. You have to switch between them, and you can only have two at a given moment. So at that point, you have to choose, like, is it worthwhile for me to have Mac out or Seth out if their elements aren't necessarily needed? There is another core bot that you do come across, Violet, who's basically like a fast travel system, which is another helpful aspect, so you can go to the specific area that you want to work in to be able to either further the story, or you can go out and explore. So as far as gameplay is concerned, I gave it high marks. This is actually a really hard to put down kind of game for me, which is surprising because I've said it before, I'll say it again, I'm not the biggest fan of the Metroid Prime series. Now, if before people scream at me, and they have, the main reason that I'm not is because I'm not a first-person kind of guy. I'm one of those guys that actually does get headaches and other issues when they play first-person games for too long. I would almost dare say, like, if they made a Mega Man game in this kind of a format, it would work. It really would. The platforming elements are perfect for a Mega Man-type game. I don't see that happening, especially since Keiji Inafune doesn't really work with Capcom anymore, but it's engaging. There were a lot of times when I picked up this game and more time passed than should have, just because I was enjoying what I was doing. Now, moving on into the audio, this is where I actually have a little bit more of a complaint. The music isn't necessarily all that inspiring. It's a lot of, the best way I know how to describe it is Last of Us had a lot of, like, the twangs of the guitar to show how empty the world is, things like that. That's what this also tries to do, but also tries to give kind of a Wild West kind of feel because it's desert. So I wasn't the biggest fan of the music of Recore. In fact, I honestly think, like, if you could fully enjoy the gameplay if you put on some other music to it. I'm not saying that the music is bad by any stretch, but it's not immersing. It's not necessary to make this game good. The other part that I wasn't all that impressed with was the voice acting. I'm not saying that they did bad jobs, but not memorable jobs. The actress who plays Jewel, I think, does fine, but it's not like if they were to replace her if there's going to be a Recore 2 and they were going to replace her, I wouldn't notice. Because in a lot of cases, I just don't think it's the best performance that could have been made with these characters. There are other characters that you come across. In fact, one of the things I love is that the core bots actually speak their own language, so they do get their own voices. I love that concept because that always makes me think of like Luke Skywalker and R2-D2 kind of thing, where he was the only one who could understand the beeps and boops. And they actually do have specific kind of voice actors doing that, so I appreciate that. But yeah, the voice acting, while it wasn't horrible, it wasn't memorable. And I know that that's hard to explain to people, but, well, I want to walk away from this and be able to think of that voice with that character. And that's the problem here, is that if the girl who played Jewel did something else and that was more awesome, I'd remember her as that, not as Jewel. And that's a sad concept, because I think there's a lot of really cool potential in the character of Jewel. So I did actually mark some things off for audio, but only because it's good, but it's not that next step. It's not great, and therefore defining the game. As far as replay value and presentation, I can actually, since I'm far enough into the game, I actually can speak into this. Replay value is totally there because, yes, you can go and finish the main story, but you can also go out and explore and continue to upgrade your core bots, continue to find other dungeons. I believe there is also DLC for this, so you can just play through this again and again. And I think you would be able to do it for at least a couple of times, and then maybe it'd get boring for you. But for me, I would have no problem just going out into the desert just to collect parts, just to see if I could get that next upgrade for Mac or that next upgrade for Seth. But I actually think, like, if I played it for a good long while, I'd probably want to move on to something else. So replay value is there, but it's not the greatest thing ever. It's not like a New Game Plus mode. Presentation, does it all come together to form does it all come together to form a good game? For the most part, it does. Visually, gameplay, they're both there. Audio doesn't necessarily couple it together. And the story, I know a lot of people might have a problem with just how basic the story is, but I like it. It works for me in a strange way, and so I do think that the presentation does come together solidly to make a great game out of this, despite whatever controversies happened with Concept, with Keiji Inafune, all of that. And that is why I'm going to give Recore my final score of a solid 8.5 out of 10. It is a solid B+. It's definitely something that if Mighty No. 9 left a bad taste in your mouth, I think Recore might fix it. As long as you take the controversy around Mighty No. 9 and you throw it out. If you approach it from a blank slate, you will appreciate this game. And I think anybody who walks in here with a blank slate will find something to enjoy out of Recore. And that's going to go ahead and do it for my review of Recore. Thank you guys so much for liking, commenting, subscribing. Continue to do so. I love you guys' feedback. Let me know what you guys thought of Recore. And of course, I will see you guys next time for the next review.